Hi, this is Andrea.
And this is Fiorenza.
Welcome to the Belonging Project podcast. We are so excited to have you here with us.
The purpose of this podcast is to bring voices together to talk about belonging. Through inspiring, real-life conversations with our guests, we learn about how belonging can show up in so many different ways, what it feels like to belong, and the impact of truly belonging.
In each episode, we will offer you inspirational and practical strategies to find your true voice in your life, in society, and as a leader. Let's dive in.
And our guest today is Camille Deniau. She's an artist and the founder of Project Roots, an art and lifestyle brand that she has created to bring stability, strength, and roots to the lives of all of those who, like her, feel rootless and in search of home. She does this through an artistic exploration of trees, and she sells her art online and through private commissions. Camille has spent the last 20 years following art classes at studios and established institutions like the University of Arts in London. She's based in London and previously worked at Google for over 6 years in sales and partnership management. Camille holds a bachelor's degree in geography and economics from the London School of Economics and a master's degree in management from HEC Paris. Dear Camille, thank you so much for being our guest today. We are thrilled to have you sharing your story with us, your experience toward belonging with us. So welcome again. And
thank you.
Would be great to start with your story, maybe, in your own words, if that's okay.
My story. I'll try to make it short because, like everyone, stories can either take a long time or they can be to the point. My story. Well, let's start with this. I'm born of French parents, so I'm originally French, but I grew up in different countries. So I didn't grow up only in France. I grew up in Singapore. I grew up in the UK, a little bit in Italy, and that encapsulates my childhood. And as we all know, childhood has a big impact on who we are and how we grow up to be. And we only understand it, of course, connecting the dots backwards. But that has really shaped a lot of who I am today. It's made me very, very adaptable, very curious, very open-minded, very culturally fluid, having grown up in different cultures. So that's kind of made who I am. And after, studying and going back and forth between the UK and France, I finally, like everyone, got a job, which was a hard journey, and something that wasn't necessarily very easy, and we can talk more about that in the vulnerable phase. And it brought me to work at Google for about 6 years between Dublin and London, where I grew as a person. I understood so much about myself. I learned a lot. I grew professionally, but not only. It really revealed a lot of this identity that I was trying to put my finger on, and why I felt sometimes out of place, sometimes in place. And while during my time at Google, I also had time for side passions and sort of exercising my hobby, and it's always been art. My mom is an artist, and it's something I've always done, whether it's drawing, painting, creating, sculpting. There was always something in my life every week, a course or an activity that connected me to my art practice. And having a bit more time in a more settled atmosphere and settled life at Google, I started to draw more, paint more, and link to these questions of identity. And, where am I from? Why doesn't this feel like home? Where is home? Having moved around a lot, my parents actually moving back to Asia, my brother being in Asia as well, just felt very confusing. And that's kind of like the intersection of both is how Project Roots was born. Me expressing this quest for identity, if you want, in an artistic form. Yeah, and it's been about four or 5 years now that I started this, just as an expression of what I was trying to figure out inside of me, I guess, my personal development journey. And through time, seeing that it resonated with a lot of people, and also perfectioning more the artistic side, and I just kept carrying it forward. And at some point, it took a lot more space in my life, and I managed to put my finger on it and call myself a third culture kid, or a cross culture kid, someone who's grown up among worlds, among different places, and understand that was part of me, and that other people were like me. And I've always been searching for this sense of home and the sense of feeling settled, and having moved back to London, which is a place that has always felt like home, is where I spent most of my formative years, like from 10 to 15. And so yeah, here I am on a new adventure, full-time entrepreneur, a founder of Project Roots, and making it a project that's not only for me and my personal development, but accessible to everyone who's feeling this way, who's trying to feel rooted, settled, creating a strong, stable force for themselves and their family. And especially in the last year, it's proven to be something that everyone needs to nurture and invest in. So that's where I'm at. That's my story. I'm sure you can pick at different parts of it in your questions, but that's a bit about me.
That's I love everything. Like as we mentioned before, like my kids are third cultural, and my personal story as well. Very familiar with what you said. I had this my hero journey, let's say, was also in this idea where do I belong? Where are my roots? I love your project. Now, your art is amazing. I love them. I saw on your website. But even this idea of the name, what is these roots? These roots that we talk about, the true belonging, this belonging to ourselves. That doesn't Brené Brown also bring about that we don't need to be fitting in a place, but it's about ourselves. So I'm curious, Camille, what is this belonging, these roots mean to you in this, if you want to use the same analogy in the roots with the true belonging or not, if for you is different, but what does that mean to you?
It's a great question. And I think belonging really as a word encapsulates like what, I've been trying to understand and achieve, and for myself and now for others through my artwork. And belonging for me is definitely linked to the roots, in the sense that it's where do I grow my roots? And on the one side, right, it's the soil that nurtures them, right? Like, where is the most fertile soil where my roots will feel good and will want to grow deeper, so that I can grow taller and better as a human being. So there's definitely one part of it, which is the soil, and that translates obviously into like the environment in which I'm in, and whether I feel like it's a place where I can, I'll be comfortable and safe and feel like I can see like a future and a growth possibility. So that's one thing, and that also comes through a sense of community, right? Because just like trees, we have our own roots, but we now know that trees connect to other trees through their root system, right? And so there's a big part of, for me, what belonging means is this notion of community. So that's a feeling I have as well. And then in terms of the actual roots, it comes down to like each individual and how different we are, and how much we are able to understand what is in our roots. Are all the things, and that's why like also my artwork is only the trees, and I don't actually draw the roots. It's because it's all the things that we can't see about us, right? And you can only start seeing them when the shadow comes through at the back of the glass. And that's not something that everyone can understand about themselves. It's something that you have to discover, right? You have to search for, you have to unveil. And belonging for me is also that, right? It's understanding who I am and who each of us is, so that we can better understand where we fit in and where we'd like to belong, I would say. Maybe a conceptual answer, but
it's wonderful. It's powerful. It's deep, like we are, like we go deep in this conversation.
Exactly.
So wow, it's a lot here. I love especially when you said that you, and I didn't notice that when I saw your work, that you didn't, even though the name is Roots, you don't show the roots, but just what people can see. Beautiful.
I'm thinking about what you said as well, about trees, that the trees have roots that connect with other trees' roots. That's just so powerful, knowing that, there's so much happening below the surface, beyond what's visible, right? I'm curious, Camille, in terms of your first experience of belonging, whether you could tell us a bit more about that.
The first experience of belonging, I think every time I think of belonging and an experience that I have and how I connect that to a feeling in my life, I think it's always been in sort of very international environments, very fluid environments culturally. So that on one dimension, right, like very blended. So an experience that I can think of, for example, is I would say at some point, so I was living in France for a couple of years when I was like 8 years old. And I then moved to London with my family. And that was just another move along the way, but moving from France to London. And although I was in the French school in London, it was still an expatriate life, right? So there were children or kids around me who were half French or some even 100% British or had other mix of nationalities. And I do remember this experience of like, normally like moving homes and moving countries is always very difficult, right? And of course we can talk about that as well. But I think this particular transition, I remember it being so smooth because I really felt the sense of like, I was in the right place. Like I was French by identity, yet I had already spent, 8 years of my life living abroad or living between, like moving around. Just come back from Singapore, and so I had found like in this community, in this city, like something that just made me feel like a sense of belonging. I think just the fact that it was very fluid, that conversation came very quickly and naturally with other children. I just remember it being very, very smooth. Really, there's no other way. It's quite far away, right? It's like 22 years ago now, but I just remember it being very, just very welcoming and very smooth in making friends and in building connections, in finding my way around the city and feeling, finding new activities and things that I like to do. And I think that's one of the first memories I have of this feeling.
It's kind of like this feeling home, even though it's not home. And what came to me is also feeling safe in some way, even though it's a new city, a new country, new people, but you felt safe, no? That because you felt.
I felt safe, and I felt like it was a nurturing place, right? Where the people were welcoming, like the environment was welcoming, the culture was very open as well and very friendly, and there was just all the elements grouped together to make it a very positive experience in terms of feeling like I belonged.
Beautiful. And this was so powerful, even though you said it was 20 something years ago, but it's still here, right? It reminds now you.
I even remember like what I was wearing on my first day at school, and one of I would not have earliest memories, but it's a very early memory, and I just remember like a good feeling. Now maybe my parents would say differently. Maybe I cried for weeks. I don't know, but but ultimately, like, that's how I felt, I think.
Yeah, so it had a real positive and deep impact that day.
Yeah, that day, and then for the 5 years that followed, living in London, and that's the reason why it had such a big impact on me, and that feeling of that I belonged, that I wanted to come back. And that's kind of, since I started off on my professional journey, my goal, and I realized this only like a few years ago, my goal has been to come back to London, settle, be a part of this city, of this community, and this is where I feel like I belong. This is home, like you say, Andrea. Like, this is like, from this day, from that first day 22 years ago, and like the 5 years that followed in that London experience, that really marked me to the point that that's what I'm searching for today.
Wow. And you've mentioned you wanted to settle in London. And that also kind of brings me back to what you said at the beginning in terms of how you settled in your role at Google, and how that feeling allowed you to explore more, to do more, be more creative and all that. And what's coming to my mind is just, I don't know if it's something that was a bit of a buzz, but there was at some point something going on social media, newspaper, everywhere, that when you knew that, you were meant to do something creative or something more artistic, or just that you had something else deep down, well, you had to quit your job and just follow your passion, whatever that was. And you didn't do that, right? Which is in a way similar to what I've done as well, right? I also didn't quit my job, and I kind of used that as a space to grow and explore more. But I'd love to know how you feel that, having that sense of maybe belonging, or maybe, having found a place there allowed you to grow and explore more.
Yeah, I love that. And the first thing that comes to mind is maybe something, again, that's been very repeated on social media, and especially in the last year. It's Maslow's pyramid of needs, right? And like, how the first thing, right, that matters, that strengthens your pyramid, is like access to food, water, health, right? And then you have that sense of feeling of belonging, and both from a like settling perspective and from a community perspective. And then from there, you can go on to feeling empowered and grow and progress in your work and in your personal and professional lives. But without those pillars, like or if they're very shaky, or if one's missing, or it's very difficult to actually go on to sort of achieve and progress in the way you want in your personal and professional life. And so I definitely believe in the importance of having a form of I was going to say settlement, I guess. Yeah, that's the word. Like feeling settled in one of these dimensions, or at least making very sure that the foundations of the pyramid are strong, mostly. And so definitely feeling like I had been looking for a job after university, like everyone. And that's a very unsettling phase, because you're deciding on part of your future, or at least you think so. And you then realize that really didn't matter what you did, but but still, like, you're searching, and so it's very destabilizing. You're moving around a lot, especially if you study abroad. You're leaving home. You're in this fluid life, right? It's a phase of life, and then the focus is on this objective, this goal. And then finally, for me, being settled in Dublin, that's where I started at Google. Being in a very, actually quite like a small town in a way, compared to where I'd had a small city, compared to where I had lived before, creates this kind of I guess, internal reflection and feeling of settling. I had a full-time job. After a year of really learning and growing into the role, was able to take a step back, have a bit more peace of mind, and sort of more space in my mind to think creatively. That's what you were saying, right, Fiorenza? Having that space to think, creatively. But definitely having the strong the full-time job, the full-time income, the community, the whole Dublin community, of course the Google community, just being part of this. And I had chosen a home as well, a flat that was a bit outside of where everyone lived around the office, and a bit more in the city center. And so I really enjoyed that sense of connecting a bit more to city life and having my own life as well on the side, and creating that for myself, that space. There was a lot of arts in Dublin, so a lot of theater, like artistic performances and things. So it was a lot of exploration. But yeah, anyway, having that stronghold definitely gave me the force and the stability, like a pillar from which to spring and allow my, my brain to think more creatively and be less obscured by other troubles that would have taken place. So yeah, definitely very important, I find, to have this balance. And what's funny is that now I did leave my job at Google at the end of last year, but because it was the right time. I had, this experience that was so rich, and I'd grown so much, and I had learned, and this had been my pillar for all these years, right? And in my goodbye email, I wrote that I actually had been at Google longer than I'd committed to anything in my life. A place, a home, a person, like in a relationship wise, like almost 7 years. It's a long time when you're 30, 32. And so yeah, it's definitely like that balancing point, that tipping point, where actually having settled in London, grown my roots, like bought a flat, like feel very settled in the relationship, etc., just feels that you have that stepping stone where you can tip, and like you have that new support pillar that can also be that, that springboard for this project. So yeah, long answer, but definitely stability, I find, like, and hence the roots, like growing deep roots that, prevent you from moving with the wind, if you want, is so important, or at least that's how I feel.
Absolutely. I mean, I resonate so much with that. And I wish that, the Maslow's pyramid of needs would be shared in a way more even widely than what it is now, especially to those that are contemplating doing something else and that are thinking, I should just go for it and take the leap and all that. That it takes time. And yeah, when you know that it's time to move from, one pillar giving you the stability to another one, that's a gut feeling, right? Well, at least that's kind of how it was for me. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that part of your story.
And I couldn't be here without asking you. Probably you answered this question thousands of times, but even for the sake of our project and people that is watching us, will be watching your interview in a few weeks. What being a third cultural kid impact you in Camille, being Camille today?
How that impacted me today. Well, on top of what I've shared, I guess, being a third culture kid means, so just to clarify maybe the definition, because it's not very clear always, but
right, good.
Right, like someone who grows up outside of their passport country for like this, I think the significant years of their life before they're 18, something like this. And so, yes, having grown up in Singapore and in London, in France as well, I think there are a lot of things that happen, when you do that. Like, first of all, you're moving a lot, right? So you're constantly uprooting, going somewhere else, and then trying to plant your roots and grow them a bit wherever you go. So that process is obviously very, it can be very painful and destabilizing. I mean, it is for everyone. It's just whether you experience it in the same way or not. But obviously, when you're a child, it's not your choice, right? You're following your family and the adventures they take you on. And so I think that's quite impacting. And then the fact that, constantly rechanging every couple or every 4 to 5 years, I think mainly on the very positive side, it creates someone who's very resilient. So I feel, resilient and adaptable. Like, it just feels like I've learned to adapt to so many different changes and situations, and being kind of outside of my comfort zone, that it just kind of feels a lot smoother for me now, I would say, after all these changes, to be able to adapt to whatever comes at me. I would say it's still very, difficult no matter what, but it gives you a bit more of that skill set, or at least I feel like it's given me that skill set. I also feel like it's just made me so much more of an open person. Like I'm, it wasn't just about moving to a new place and creating your own life there or whatever. It was also about like the experience and the adventure that it was to move to Singapore and eat durian as a fruit in my lunchbox, my Hello Kitty lunchbox, and have my favorite dish still today be Hainanese chicken rice from Singapore. And there's something so enriching about crossing these borders and having all these experiences when you're a kid that make you crave them a lot when you're older. So travel, but also be a lot more open to and almost oblivious to different cultures and where people are from, because it's very hard to define where you're from when you've moved around this much. So yeah, being able to just connect with people in a very fluid way, beyond appearances, beyond like where people are from, beyond like stereotypes, etc. I think that's something that I really appreciate and how it's shaped me, who I am today. But yeah, mostly I'm, everything I do today is almost a result of this. So, and one last thing I think that really impacted me in today is this importance of community. And I think having grown up moving around like this, you have to create a new community every time, right? And as a child and as a young adult, you have to make friends. And that's something that can be very difficult. And I remember my last move when I was 15 back to France, I still remember telling my dad, like crying and being like, I don't want to make friends. I just want to do my 2 years of high school, get my degree and leave back to London. And of course I made friends, and of course I love them. And they're some of my best friends today. But so, yeah, it's definitely made me realize the importance for me of community and of creating that around me and feeling supported in that way. And so it's something that I prioritize a lot.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing this, for not just for my experience, but I hear from so many friends, expat friends, and clients and so on, that most of the time parents felt this sense of guilty, what I'm doing with my kids, or my kid is suffering, or he doesn't adapt at school. And what you being raised up this way, I think this is what I want for parents and people that are watching us, that the seeds that you are planting, that you are giving to your kid now, or it was before, or you be given, it was something that it's priceless, because it's life experience. There is no price for that. This is a beautiful example with you, your work and what you share with us.
I'm laughing so much because I have these conversations with my parents, and
really?
They had that sense of guilt, but now that they see what I'm making out of it, like a whole business, they're like, oh, do we get shares? Like, do we get credit for this? I mean, we traumatized you and now it's turning into like something beautiful. So
and we have another question, and I think you may have touched on this already. What factors do you think are super important to bring to life that sense of belonging?
I would say the first thing that comes to mind actually is self-awareness, because if you don't know yourself, like, it's hard to perceive other people's reactions as, none, like, in a positive way, let's say, or I think that's the first thing. But I think self-awareness also, because you have to know where you feel like you belong, right? Listen to what feels right, what feels like you fit, what feels like good for you. So I think, self-awareness is an important thing. But I also feel like openness, curiosity are really important. Like from everyone else's perspective, like how can you make someone feel like they belong, and how also can you feel like you belong somewhere. It's a lot about being very open and judgment free, like just being noticing a lot instead of putting your own interpretation of it, if you want, because from the moment you start interpreting things, then you feel like, you know, it's projecting something that really doesn't exist in a way. So I definitely feel like this importance of self-awareness, openness, curiosity, but also, like I mentioned before, like community. I think, you know, the importance of community when I think of the factor for belonging is so important. Like everyone else, like this social aspect, and it's so strong, and it's what makes us human, right? In a way, it's like this ability to find others that welcome us and are open and make us feel like we're in the right place, and in the same way contributing that to others, right? Like welcoming others with an open mind, with, you know, no judgments. And I think these are some of the factors I think about.
They are great ones, and I really, really appreciate how you've mentioned self-awareness. It's actually something that comes up a lot in our coaching work, and it's almost like everything starts with self-awareness, right? Actually, I do believe that everything starts with self-awareness. Yeah, thank you.
So our last questions now is this quick questions and answers, like you bring whatever comes to you in the moment, from your heart. And in a few words, belonging for me is
knowing who I am and what I need.
Boom. Okay, the best. No,
that's the impact of how it landed on me. You know, I had to make the sound.
I would have said self-awareness before our chat, but then since we just talked about it, I think it goes beyond. It's also like what you need. Like
excellent. The best advice I received that I like to share with others is.
You're gonna laugh. This is an advice my dad gave me, and that always stuck with me, and that I repeat. It's be like water, my friend, Bruce Lee, which essentially means just be fluid, like adapt. Like water goes in all the corners. Water goes in all the, water is very strong when it's on full power, but also water can be very, very poetic and very slow and very tranquil. So be like water, my friend.
I will take this and I use it. I will quote it. Camille said, but water for me is essential as a Pisces, and it's part of my purpose as well, life purpose metaphor.
Wow.
Yes, I'm the way of the ocean. Lastly, the world would be a better place if...
I think it's a very practical one that comes to mind, actually. It's if everyone, and you're going to love this, but if everyone did coaching. But actually, no, like jokes aside, like I spent a whole year and a half with a coach when I was going through this career transition, but also this identity crisis kind of, and trying to make sense of Project Roots and what was coming up for me. And it was a mix of, understanding myself, again, back to self-awareness, but also just professionally, like building my purpose, my vision, like what it is, what are my values, who am I, like for the future. And so definitely the power of coaching is something that would make everyone, a better person and better able to communicate and interact with others, and hence the world would be a better place.
Wonderful. We could not be more grateful that this answer and for everything that you shared. You were just amazing. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for listening to the Belonging Project podcast. We hope you enjoy our deep dive into belonging and listening amazing stories from our guests.
We'd love you to share about the Belonging Project with your friends and colleagues. And also, we'd be delighted to connect on LinkedIn and share more about our experiences. Thank you again, and stay tuned for the next episode.